Good evening and welcome to every viewers who have joined the webinar session. I am Dr. Mukhika from Beacon Lunar team, and our speaker for today's session is Dr. Neha Kakkar. The topic for today's session is ADHD and its homeopathic management. So before starting the session, I will like to give a brief introduction about our speaker, Dr. Neha Kakkar. Dr. Neha has done her BHMS from Dr. B.R. Sur Homeopathic Medical College. She has been a practicing homeopathic consultant for the past 16 years and currently practicing in Meerut at Homeocure and Care Clinics. She is pursuing postgraduate diploma in psychology. She is a specialist in all kinds of acute and chronic disorders and psychological problems. She has authored articles that are posted at different online and offline platforms like Homeopathic 360, Hinemania, and Homeopathic Sandesh. She is also a moderator and presenter for daily webinars at IFPH, that is International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy. I would like to thank Dr. Neha for giving us this opportunity. Now we'll begin with the session, and at the end of the session, we'll take the Q&As. Dr. Neha, you can kindly start with the session.
Thank you, Dr. Anushi, for the wonderful introduction. It is a equal pleasure for me to host this webinar on behalf of Vision Radar Opus, and I thank you for giving me the time and space to present my views and thoughts on the given topic. It is also a great opportunity for me. And I also thank all the doctors and other general people present here who will be listening to the webinar today. Uh, the topic, as Dr. Rishu mentioned, for today's webinar is a very burning topic. Topic for today's webinar is ADHD. As all the doctors must be knowing, and even the general public must be knowing, that ADHD in the recent years have come up at the lips of everybody. Everybody is talking about ADHD very frequently and very suddenly. uh, Even the newspapers are talking, the social media is filled with many talks, and even doctors are giving many talks and seminars and giving different platforms to discuss this newly entered, you can say, disease. Because uh, just 10 or 20 or 30 years back, the name of ADHD was not so much louder now, which it is today, in today's time, because ADHD has become a very very pressing and burning topic in the last 10 to 20 years. So obviously, all the doctors must be familiar with the name of ADHD. ADHD's full form is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And today we are going to talk in detail about what this disorder is about, why it has become so much, a burning topic nowadays, and what exactly are the things which can lead to the onset of this disease syndrome. It's a kind of a syndrome, because it's a collection of symptoms. It's not a disease as such per se, but it is a very much collection of different symptoms which can lead to its diagnosis of ADHD. So we are going to see its details, and obviously we are in the end we are going to see its homeopathic management, and we will be going to discuss also a case of ADHD uh, in this webinar. So let's start with the presentation. So first we'll see why ADHD has suddenly come up suddenly on the talks of everybody. Everybody is talking about ADHD. Why it has come up so suddenly uh, on the front view? So the prevalence of ADHD can be seen rising due to the different statistics we have obtained. In this slide, I have just compiled a few of them to give an idea that how ADHD is slowly encroaching our mental health of our kids and the adolescents. According to the National Institute of Health, United States, the past couple of decades, have seen a continuous increase in ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and the National Population Survey reflects an increase in the prevalence from 6.1% to 10.2% in the 20-year period from 1997. So you can see in the past 20 years, almost 10 to 15% of the population is getting affected from this syndrome which we called ADHD. So this was a survey done by the National Institute of Health, and it shows that from 100% to around 11.33% to be exact. This is the percentage of ADHD patients we are seeing in our daily basis. So and obviously, as we will see further in the presentation, that it affects mainly our children and young adolescent population. That is the most vulnerable part of the population that is getting affected by ADHD, and why it is getting that also we will see further in the presentation. Another thing, another statistic which shows that why ADHD is going to be in the form of an epidemic in the coming years. It is going to grow in epidemic proportions in the coming 20 to 30 to 50 years. And this market survey done by the therapeutic market size, which is a survey done which shows the uh, amount of drugs and amount of money that will be invested in the industry which treats ADHD. It's seen that around $538 million was invested in 2022, and it is about to reach around $1,195 million in 2030. That is, it is showing a growth rate of 10.5% during the forecast period. Also, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare received $10.79 billion from the union budget in the financial year of 2023 to 24, a rise of almost 3.4% from 10.43 billion in the financial year of 22 to 23. So you can see from the year of 22 to 23, there was the budget for ADHD drugs was only 3.4%, and that rose to 10.7. So there is an increase of almost, you can say, 20% increase in the drug usage market, and by 2030 it is almost going to get doubled, the market size of the drugs which we are going to give in ADHD. So these two statistics which we see, this one and this one, both show that obviously the incidence of this newly founded disease which affects our children and adolescents is going to increase furthermore, and is going to take epidemic proportions in the future. So it's obviously a matter of concern for the doctors also and for the general population. So, what exactly is ADHD? Obviously, as the name itself suggests, and mostly the medical people present here must be knowing that ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Now, obviously, the name is suggesting half of the things which happen in ADHD. Uh, the sometimes the symptoms which we see daily in our children might correspond to the ADHD symptoms, because before I would like to go into the core of the ADHD symptom, I would like to mention that the generation that is coming up now, of the kids which is coming up now, is more, the brain size has grown. They are more exposed to the nitty gritties of things. They are more exposed to the social media, they're more exposed to the computers, to the internet, even to the bookish knowledge, the books knowledge of the books which we used to study 10 years or 15 years back, that is increased manifold for our kids. That must everybody must be relating to that. And obviously the exposure of the environment, the internet, the social media, and even the activity wise, the things have changed drastically in from the last 15 to 20 years. So sometimes it's quite difficult to diagnose what ADHD can present itself. But when we go into the core symptoms of ADHD, these are the symptoms which we come to encounter in an ADHD patient. The first and the foremost symptom, as it's the name denotes, attention deficit. It shows a lack of focus or difficulty in concentrating on a particular task or a core. Now this symptom can be explained with some examples, like for example, and obviously ADHD affects mostly the children, because it starts as a behavioral change in the children. We see certain children who are very very unattentive. They are not able to uh, focus on any particular even a small task, like if you give a child some building blocks, or some numbers to write, or some toys to play, they are not able to concentrate their attention even on building a simple block like things, or even like we have those games which we stack the things over one another. So these children even cannot perform such simple activities. So the warning signals sign start at a very young age, when the child even cannot concentrate his attention while playing. And slowly as the child grows, we see he or she is not able to concentrate in his studies, also is not able to concentrate in a simple task, like even the brushing the teeth, or wearing one own's clothes, or yeah, buttoning or unbuttoning the shirt's buttons, or even just when the mother says please keep your things in order. So these kind of things, slowly from the small child, it comes up as big things as the child grows up. So there is a lack of focus and lack of concentration on a very particular task or core, and this core can be as simple as playing toys, or as difficult as studying or doing other important activities of a personal person or an individual. The second symptom which we see in ADHD, the second part is that attention deficit hyperactivity. We see a certain kind of hyperactivity or restlessness or fidgetity and inability to keep still. The child is constantly in a state of motion. His brain is in a constant state of motion. The brain neurotransmitters are uh, exhibiting continuous signals which are not giving a fruitful action. They are just doing things randomly. They are just running around the house, keeping the things not in order, throwing the things around the void, just playing and jumping around, always pulling somebody's leg, or always irritating the parents. So these symptoms, now you can see these symptoms can be a very general symptom of a naughty child also. But when does thus it becomes into the category of ADHD? When that restlessness start interfering even with the slightest of the activity. Obviously being naughty is not a bad thing, but when that naughtiness increase to a level when the child cannot even concentrate on the simplest of activities, like brushing the teeth, they even forget to take bath, or do certain simple task which the teacher or even the parent has given them. So we need to see where we need to demarcate also the ADHD symptom and the general naughtiness. uh, so moving on to the next symptom, we see there is a kind of impulsiveness and aggressiveness and erratic behavior along with anxiety and mood swings. The ADHD child or the young adolescent can be characterized by great aggressive behavior also. Like if the child is asked to do some core or do some homework, he's going to react in a very aggressive manner. He will say like, "Mama, I don't want to do it. Mama, you are always just behind me. I just don't want to do it. And everybody is just telling me to do this and that. I just don't want to do it." And he is going to shout on his parents and even on the teachers, and he's not going to listen to anybody. And he's very very impulsive and erratic behavior. Sometimes he's very aggressive also, and sometimes he can be, so shy or into himself or herself, that you see a kind of erratic behavior in these kind of patient. Another symptom which we see in the patient of ADHD is forgetfulness with short attention span and absent-mindedness. Now forgetfulness will obviously will be there because the mind is in a constant state of motion. The mind is not still, so these kind of children are not able to obviously fix the attention, so in the process they also tend to get forgetful with a lot of things. They tend to forget their homework, they tend to forget, that they have to do some important thing, they tend to forget what mama said to me to do these things. So these kind of symptoms we start also seeing in them. So the basic gist of ADHD is lack of focus or difficulty in concentrating on a particular task or a core, and obviously there is a restless and fidgety. These two are the basic symptoms, and all the other symptoms of impulsiveness, aggressiveness, and forgetfulness, they all revolve around it. This lack of focus and restlessness, these two are the main basic characteristic symptoms of ADHD. uh, in this chart also you can see there is a short attention span, careless mistakes. Obviously the as the child is unable to follow instructions, he is not able to follow instructions because his or her mind does not take the instruction. They are in constant state of restlessness and motion, so they forget things very easily and they perform mistakes repeatedly. There is obviously fidgeting. Now this fidgeting can be also explained, like, if the child goes to a birthday party or some other function, they are constantly picking somebody. They are not sitting still, they are just disturbing everybody. They are not, in a state of rest, and they even tend to spoil the program sometimes because they are not at rest, their inside is not at rest, and that restlessness also get transferred to other people. So uh, they end up, spoiling the things very easily. And so this fidgety is a constant irritant for the other people too. They act without thinking. Obviously they are going to shout and, just don't want to do things, just they are, just they want that their will is only done, their whims are only done. And then further there is forgetfulness. So these, you can see this short attention span, careless mistakes, fidgeting, act without thinking, and forget. This whole thing is also revolving around the lack of concentration which I mentioned before, and also to the restless and fragility, that is the state of hyperactivity that is going inside the brain. Now, at one end of the spectrum, we see this hyperactivity, and this obstinate and whim or fancied child who does not want to hear anybody and does not want to do anything, and just want to do their own thing, just jumping around there and not listening to and having aggressive and violent behavior. But at the other end of the spectrum, we also see some kind of withdrawalness in these kind of children, because as we see in today's time, as we see, we are, over pressuring our kids with, academic performances, and also with other activities. We tend to, pressurize the child with a lot of things. And if the child starts developing symptoms of ADHD, like of this hyperactivity and violent behavior and slowly other things, so what happens is sometimes this hyperactivity get converted into a depressive mode of, the disease. The child gets so underconfident due to constant nagging, because everybody is telling them that you are not right, you are not doing things rightly, you are doing all the things, haphazardly, your homework is not done, your school grades are bad, you're always a nuisance to everybody. So what this leads to, it's a kind of depressiveness in that patient. The child gets withdrawn in herself or himself, he goes into a shell. And this part of the disease is more dangerous, I think, than the hyperactivity part, because the hyperactivity, we can all see, we can see the hyperactivity, we can see that the patient, the child or the individual is not able to concentrate in some task, and he's behaving, in an erratic manner, that is obviously seen. But what goes unnoticed is this depressive mode, when the child stops, talking, and the child stops, even reacting to certain small things. He's not even answering the simplest question. Even the mother asks, have you eaten your food, or have you done your homework, did you go to play today, and how was your day? So they start also going into a shell, and they stop giving answers. So this is another mode of ADHD, where they go into a shell and they go inside themselves. The mind goes inside because they don't think that they are getting understood by anybody else. Obviously, these children are in grave problem. ADHD children are in grave problem. Obviously, there is problem going inside, but we need to have an eye where we can understand both the sides of the disease, the hyperactive side of the disease and also the depressive. So in the depressive side of the disease, we see slow activity, sluggishness, withdrawal symptoms. The child withdraws. He will not take interest in doing any of the activity. He will say, mama, I don't want to go to school, or I don't want to play, I don't want to do this, I don't want to go anywhere, I just want to sit at home and just watch my TV. And the child or adolescent goes into a shell, non-communication and non-expression of emotions, and depressive episodes. So this is the other side of disease which we see in ADHD. One side is the hyperactive side, and the other is the depressive side. And one more symptom which I have not mentioned in the slide, like the children of ADHD are very much interested in watching TV or even watching the mobile, because these two kind of activities are kind of activities in which there is action. The brain is giving signals which does not lead to any fruitful action. Whenever you're watching cartoon on a TV, or you are just browsing on the channels, you're just browsing them, and then the things go by. Or even if you are browsing the videos or the shorts, or even the whatever the social media offers nowadays, this kind of activity is fruitless. The child is not able to learn anything, but the brain is in constant state of motion. The brain is constant state of hyperactivity. So this exposure of internet and excessive TV watching or excessive screen time also boosts the ADHD symptoms nowadays. So obviously, even the depressive mode of children, we can see that they tend to watch TV more, because they think that nobody is going to hear them out or answer them, and nobody is going to understand them. So they go into a shell and they just engage their brain in this kind of fruitless activity of TV watching, or just browsing the internet, or the social media thing. Next, we see that how ADHD in childhood can show in adulthood. As we have seen that ADHD is mostly affecting the children and the adolescents, the young adolescents, and eventually the adults also carry the baggage of the disease which they are getting in the childhood, or they are obtaining in the adolescent, and they're carrying it further in their adulthood. So as I mentioned before also, the small child, the age group of 1 to 5 to 7 years, here we see the symptoms that he is not fixing his attention even to play, or even to sit still and build some blocks, or do some creative activity like drawing or other things, or just writing ABCD or 1 2 3. Slowly as the child enters into adolescence, you see the errative or the aggressive behavior coming up. And there is kind of an antisocial personality also starts developing in these kind of children, because obviously there is a problem inside them. But we as individual, we as parents, we as teachers, and we as doctors need to identify this problem, and connect with the kids and the young adolescents, and then only we will be able to treat this disease more effectively. So slowly the ADHD starts progressing, and that anti-social kind of personality starts becoming start creating in the adolescence. And slowly, as the child or the adolescent reaches above the age of 18, he starts engaging himself in kind of anti-social activities also, and they become a sidelined part of the society where they are not accepted. and they tend to go into criminal activities also. And they take up, very very different kind of jobs where, this different personality of their, or their aggressive personality, is sometimes taken as normal. So as you see in this chart also, in childhood you see school failure or underachievement, because there's inability to fix the attention on the particular task, and to do their academic activities, and even to take in other, extracurricular activities part. There is underachievement or school failure. There's constant complaints from the school that this child is not able to perform properly because of his lack of inability to fix attention, and he is always a nuisance in the class, and which becomes job failure or unemployment. As I mentioned, they tend to become a sideline part of the society. There is a increased chance of their not getting the jobs, or getting very very odd jobs where they tend to do more of night jobs, because in the daylight this aggressive behavior is not very much accepted, but at the darkness of night, you can see that this aggressive behavior or antisocial behavior is accepted in, professions like prostitution, and nightclubs, or things like pocket picking, or even, they become tend to become thieves, because there is an anti-social personality that starts becoming. So there is a failure, job failure or underemployment chance is there due to the school failure. Obviously, the second thing which we see is the multiple injuries that come up, because obviously the child is in constant motion. He's always poking, he's jumping around, he's just not sitting still. So obviously he's going to get a lot of injuries, and that leads to the development of risk taking or car wrecking behavior. They tend to become very fast drivers, because they are not, uh, want to be in control. They just want to push the limits, and they tend to drive very fast, and they tend to involve themselves in risk taking behavior, which can lead to these kind of developments. Third thing which we commonly see is drug experimentation. Now this is a very very matter of concern. As I told you, that ADHD patient, whether it's the child, and obviously the child is becoming the adolescent, he is getting exposed to different kind of things, different kind of behavior, and obviously through the social media and the internet we tend to see all these things like smoking, drinking, and drug experimentation, and even things like pornography and other things also starts coming up. So this leads to, as the child develops in age, his disacceptance, his erratic behavior leads to drug experimentation, because whenever we take these substances like smoking, drinking, or drugs, these things give us temporary sense of calmness to these personalities, or at those times they feel that at least this there is some happiness in their life, because obviously they are not getting accepted, and they are not into the group, or they are not into the society of the normal society. So this kind of different drug experimentation tend to give them some solace, and which can lead to drug dependence in future. As many as you scroll the newspapers daily, mostly in the developed nations like USA or Europe, where the young kids get very early exposed to drugs experimentation, and when we tend to see news is like at the age of 30 they die due to some drug overdose. At the age of 40 die due to some kind of drug overdose. So there is a lot of experimentation going on, because obviously when we see further in the slides in the presentation, the what are the causes which are actually leading to these things, which we see that these developed nations are having kind of personalities which where everybody wants to exert their own will and fancies very strongly. So these things lead to these kind of drug dependence behaviors, etc. We will see this part further in the slides, because as we discuss the causes, this part becomes more picture clear. And then we see the oppositional defined disorder or conduct disorder. Obviously there is a conduction disorder. The child is not able to behave properly. He's an outcast in the society like thing, and is not accepted into the family, or into the extended family, or in the friends, or in the school, and that can lead to the formation of the criminal or antisocial personality disorder. So we see the childhood when it is getting affected, that is leading to the adulthood thing which we are facing as a major problem. The next thing which we see is repetitive failure. Obviously there is repetitive failure at the school, is not performing well, so it becomes into hopelessness. This is the thing which was I was telling, they go into hopelessness or frustration or resignation, that is they go into the depressive mode of thing. And this is more dangerous because whenever they do go into depression or negative thinking mode, and into a shell or into non communication and all non expression, they tend to become more homicidal and suicidal also. uh, Obviously whenever person is not able to perform well in any part of his life, whether it's academic or extracurricular, there is a sense of a sense of not performing well in life, and this leads to obviously depressiveness and hopelessness, and which further leads to homicides and suicide. Recently there was a case where there in US, where this young man pulled the trigger on around 10 odd people. He killed around 10 odd people with his revolver. So what we see here is only the end product, it's the end part of the spectrum. The starting part starts in the childhood itself, and ADHD is a major problem. It's the major cause which will lead to these kind of things, and we need to identify these kind of behaviors at a very early age and provide particular intervention. Obviously with you will see in the presentation further with medicines and other techniques which we're going to see. So I hope this part is clear with everybody, where we see the main basic symptoms of ADHD, that is lack of attention and restlessness and fidgetity, which will lead to further development of symptoms in adolescence. And further in adulthood we see these kind of things which are happening of job failure, drug dependence, and antisocial personality disorder. Now what is the causes, or what are the factors which can lead to development of ADHD? Uh, Obviously, the causes are always around us. We just need to identify and need to rule out. Obviously, there are a lot of physical causes, but there are many also, socio-cultural and psychological causes which can lead to development of ADHD, and we are going to see them one by one. So the first cause that we come across is like in brain trauma. This brain trauma thing can actually occur even when there is a physical trauma to any child, like a child falls from from a very high place, or he falls off and becomes unconscious, or even when there is history of injury on the brain or on the head when child is in the womb of the mother. Now these kind of cases are more common, where the mother had some kind of history of injury during the pregnancy, when the mother had a fall, or mother had some kind of trauma history, or mother underwent through some kind of diseases like encephalitis, or hepatitis, or some kind of viral infections which can also travel to the brain of the child and can lead to brain trauma, which further leads to non-development development, or not proper development of the brain cells of the individual, and which can lead to these behavioral changes of ADHD. So brain trauma is one of the physical cause which can lead to development of ADHD. The second cause, where we see I would not say this is a cause, this is a more of predisposing factor of genetic history of ADHD, depression, or anxiety. Now this ADHD thing, as I told you, has just come up in the last 20 or 30 years, but the history of depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder in any family can predispose any child or any individual or adolescent with this ADHD, because whenever there is a history of depression and anxiety, the brain cells that get transferred to the child, whenever the mother or the father or the grandparents have a history of depression and anxiety, obviously the brain is not in a state of proper rest and is not healthy. So though that unhealthy state is obviously transferred to the child, and the child would also carry this baggage of depression or anxiety or other mental disease like bipolar disorder, or even having other symptoms of ADHD. So he will get this baggage, and he will going to obviously, if the conditions around him are not right, he will eventually going to get developed the symptoms of ADHD. So the second cause is of genetic history of ADHD, depression and anxiety. Third, a very important factor is smoking and alcohol intake by the mother during the pregnancy. In the today's urban and modern times, the females are also, taking smoking and alcohol very frequently, even obviously before marriage and even after marriage. This has, which was a taboo in previous time, now it has become a norm of the society. But now it is a proven fact that smoking and alcohol can obviously damage the growing fetus, even physically and mentally, and can lead to a lot of other problems with the child's behavior, and obviously can lead to development of ADHD. So the third factor is smoking and alcohol intake by the mother during pregnancy. The fourth factor being the premature birth or decreased brain size. Whenever the children who are born with, small brain size, or their total body weight is less or not up to the mark, obviously the small brain size have less of neural connections. This is a neuropathology thing which we cannot discuss here, but obviously when the size of the brain is less, the neural connections that form, they are not up to the mark, and they are not adequate for the proper behavioral development of the child. So these premature birth or decreased brain size can also lead to the development of ADHD. Environmental toxins, side effects of vaccination and allopathic drugs. Now this factor is, purely, we can say, limited to the homeopathic part of, or the homeopathic etiology, because obviously the environmental toxins are taken up by the allopaths and the modern medical science, but the side effects of vaccinations and allopathic drugs, now this is a obviously a matter of debate for the medical fraternity, where we can, argue with the modern doctors that what are the side effects of vaccinations and allopathic drugs. But homeopathically speaking, we often tend to see, even in my personal practice, I tend to see many, patients coming up ki, Dr. Saab, I have this complaint after this kind of vaccination. After this, I have just, my appetite has vanished, or my weight has, constantly been decreasing, or there is some kind of, problem in their bones, or their in locomotor system. So we tend to see these side effects of vaccination and allopathic drugs in our practice, and we tend to take them in our, rubric selection also. But this is a more homeopathically considered factor. But the factor of environmental toxins is well taken up. Obviously, the things today, like our water, air, and our environment is so much polluted by the environmental toxins of arsenic, lead, and other things, which can obviously damage the brain. And now it's very much coming up in front that even the plastics in present, which are present in the toys of children, even in the shampoo, the phthalates and the, sulfates, that has been we are using in our daily day to day life, they tend to affect the brain health of the child. And there is a raised awareness now about this thing also, uh, that we tend to, choose our products wisely, which contain these chemicals, which can damage the brain health of the child, and which can lead to development of things like ADHD. The next factor is of urbanization, nuclear family setup, and decreased social and family values. Now, as I was telling you, that today the society setup is such where there is excessive pressure on the kids to perform, in the school, and in the even in the family, they tend to, behave in a certain manner. And obviously the setup of nuclear family has lead to, uh, uh, change in the growth patterns of children. Previously, when we used to have joint families, there were grandparents at home, there were other siblings at home, there were other people, to take care of the kids. But now, as the nuclear family setup has come up and both parents are working, they tend to, sometimes, I'm not saying that they tend to do this, forcefully or deliberately, but this has become that they don't even have the time to see what their child is up to. They're not able to tend to see the needs, the emotional and the psychosocial needs of the kid, and they tend to often neglect and overlook, and they are more concerned about the child, how the child is performing, and that can lead to development of ADHD also, because the child brain is quite vulnerable and he or she needs the proper food, that is love, to get its proper development. So that can also lead to development of ADHD. Unfavorable emotional or intellectual environment, that I also obviously have told previously also, that there is increased pressure on the kids, and if the family environment is not conducive, if the parents are constantly nagging the child or they are even abusing the child, that can also leads to unhealthy development kid's brain, and which can lead to development and behavior. So these two last factors are of urbanization and environmental are more of psychosocial factors, and the factors which we discussed previously are more of physical factors. The brain trauma, genetic history, smoking and alcohol take, premature birth, environmental toxins and vaccinations are more of physical factors, and the last two factors of urbanization, a nuclear family setup and decreased family values, and unfavorable emotional intellectual environment at home or school are more of psychosocial factors which can lead to development of ADHD. Now as we see, now here we see that there is an increased correlation between ADHD and autism. Now autism is also a very broad spectrum disease which we cannot fix that this kind of symptoms which we see in autism, but obviously autism is a more developed part of ADHD where the brain is not even able to function the slightest, even the simplest of things, because the autism child is even unaware of the danger that lies ahead. He's not even able to identify danger, is not even able to react, and so there is increased brain damage in autism. But when we see ADHD patients, these ADHD patients have a precursor kind of symptoms which can further lead to autism. Obviously in one lifetime you can't see a person with ADHD developing into autism, but you see the parents who are having ADHD might conceive a child with autism, because obviously the brain is also getting transferred into to the child. So the ADHD symptoms of hyperactivity, inhibition, difficulty in reading and attention focus, and craving new experiences can lead to autism. But and you see in this chart, these are the differences which we see, but the basic things which are coming, the sensory issues, impulse control behavior, interest based nervous system, emotional regulation, etc., executive functioning, increased risk of victimization, and differences in eye contact, passionate focus, or social differences that we see common in ADHD and autism. And so ADHD and autism are quite correlated, and I would not go into very much details. I just wanted to share this small information that even patients with ADHD can further lead to development of autism, not in the same generation, but they can lead to its formation in the next generation. Now coming to the treatment for ADHD. In the conventional treatment methodologies, we see, as the ADHD has lack of focus and lack of attention and lot of hyperactivity. So the modern medical sciences uses a combination of medications and also certain kind of therapies, as the ADHD is kind of a behavioral disorder. Obviously we can control the behavior of a person with certain kind of drugs where we can subdue the behavior, or we can decrease the impulsivity, and we can decrease the erratic behavior, and we can decrease the aggressiveness of the patient. But uh, as we see the psychosocial aspect of this disease, we see these therapies like cognitive behavior therapy and other kind of psychology therapy are very much used in treatment of ADHD, and obviously they tend to help. Uh, 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 I would say around 50% of the time, and 50% part is played obviously by the medicine, and 50 and 60% part is played by the therapy, because there is a deep psycho social and psychological connection of ADHD. So the medications which the conventional allopaths use are stimulants which contains very kinds of methylphenidate and amphetamine, which has it's a kind of calming effect on the hyperactivity children with ADHD. And uh, stimulants like these also increase dopamine, which is associated with the feeling of happiness and obviously motivation and attention. Dopamine makes you happy, so these stimulants tend to increase dopamine. And then we have other known stimulants which are used in treatment of ADHD, like Strattera, Intuniv, Capway, and Culgary. These are the brand names, and the salts are atomoxetine, guanfacine, clonidine, and fluoxetine. So these kind of null stimulants are also given in treatment of ADHD. And the other part which we see, the therapies which are used for ADHD are like cognitive behavior therapy, anger management, counseling psychology, psychoeducation, and family therapy. So this is the psychology part of the psychological intervention part of ADHD, and this is very very important. And we as homeopaths can play psychologist all the time. We can play psychiatrist all the time. We can, as soon as the patient enters our clinic, we start reading the patient. We start reading the symptoms through the eye movement, through the body language, and how the person is behaving, how the child is behaving, and we can start taking up the case as soon as the individual enters the clinic. And we need to have that psychological eye, especially for these mental disease cases like ADHD, because these nitty gritties are the things which help us to take up the case and help us to find out the right remedy and the right simillimum, which can lead to the right treatment and cure of the disease. Now moving on to the homeopathic medicines for ADHD, here I have listed some of them. Obviously, any other medicines can be used in treatment of ADHD depending upon the mental patient and the constitutional makeup of the patient. But these few drugs, when we take up, we can say that these are the drugs which can use. In ADHD, like agaricus, where we have fidgetinity and restlessness and impulsiveness. There's constant moving and numbness of the nervous system. Then we have anacardium, where we have more of mental symptoms like split personalities and of two wills. Then we have arsenic album, which gives a lot of restlessness, physical and mental both. We have Baraita carb, where we have decreased brain size. Calcarea carb and calcarea phos, which had developmental anomalies, open fontanelles, and a decreased absorption of calcium in the bones. We have carcinosin, where there is a history of abuse in the family. When there is a history of other unfulfillment of desires, and other behaviors like dancing behavior and other things which we see in carcinosis. Here I'm just discussing the basic things of the case, because this is a very big topic where you need to discuss we can have another session where we can discuss the details of the drugs. Then we have Sina. Obviously there is an asina child which is very irritable. We have hyoscyamus, we have medurinum, natrium lycopodium, obviously Naxomica. Lycopodium can be used in ADHD patients which tend to go more into the shell. Then we have Naxmomica and Stramonium, the hyper remedies, where we say erratic and aggressive behaviors. We have Tarantula, the dancing remedy. Then we have Tuberculinum, the hyper intelligent child, where even ADHD can be faced with hyper intelligent kids also, because they tend to have their expectations with themselves a lot. So they also tend to go into ADHD and more into the depressive phase, because they might not get expectation from outside, but sometimes they have expectation from themselves to perform, to be at the top all the time. So this tuberculinum can be used in these cases. Then we have Thuja, where we also have psychotic and depressive symptoms. So this is the basic list, and obviously we need to study that medicines very deeply to identify the symptoms which we see in our daily cases. And here are some of the common rubrics which I have listed down, for which we take in case of ADHD. Here I have used Robin Murphy's homeopathic medical repertory. We have hyperactivity, learning disabilities, patience, behavior, absent-mindedness, forgetfulness, anger, answers aversion to, anxiety general, biting behavior, changeable behavior, concentration difficult, contemptuous, anxiousness, dwarfish children, learning disabilities, hyperactivity children, dyslexia, toxicity due to chemical pollutants. So, in this Murphy repertory, we have a different chapter on toxicity where we can say the different etiologies of chemical pollutants, antibiotics, ailments from drugs, quinine, tobacco, general vaccinations, reactions, and autism children after vaccination. So this here we can see this vaccination pass part is coming up very much when we tend to see the causation modalities of ADHD, and these are the general rubrics which a doctor or a homeopath can take into. Obviously, there can be different rubrics. You can always have a variety of symptoms in ADHD depending upon the presentation of the case, and accordingly you can take up different rubrics which become. These are I've just made a very small list up for your all reference. Moving on to the miasmatic analysis, the two main miases which we see in this as this obviously the psychotic and syphilitic miasm. Psychotic miasm is presented by brooding, difficulty in attention, forgetfulness, daydreaming, planning and plotting, repeated thoughts and actions, anxiety, depression, and fidgetity. Then we have syphilitic symptoms like anger, jealousy, destructiveness, aggressive behavior, disobedience, and suicidal tendency, as we discussed before. So the main basic miasm which we see is of psychosis and syphilis. Moving on to the case of ADHD. This was a case of a 11-year-old male child which was presented in my clinic with his parents on 5th January 2023. So this was a 11-year-old male child, and this was a very typical case of ADHD with all the hyperactivity symptoms. But I came, the simillimum was evident to me after some time, but obviously it came up in the repertory. But sometimes obviously it is up to the homeopath that how he reads or he or she reads the case. So this was a case with a very typical symptom, and but obviously these cases of ADHD take some time because obviously the brain involved, and the medicines takes time to get absorbed and get into the system, and to bring about the desired effects. So the presenting complaints of the patient were decreased concentration in studies. The main complaint of the child was that he was not able to concentrate in the studies. He had hyperactive behavior. The child could not sit still while eating or study, could run every now and then, and the mother was very much irritated by this. The main complaint that mother told me when she was sitting me with the child, that ये खाना भी जब खाता है तो ये इधर उधर भागता है, मतलब खाने का एक निवाला लिया फिर भाग गया, फिर निवाला लिया फिर भाग गया. So this kind of thing was always there. He could not eat even sitting still, so leave alone studying or doing other things. He was very much hyperactive, and due to this hyperactive there was decreased concentration in the studies. Was very self-willed, did not obey his parents. Every time the parents used to told him to do some course, never used to obey them. There was hyperactive behavior, always danced. Even sitting in my clinic, that child was just moving here and touching everything, just touching the pen, banging the table, moving around the chair, and just he was quite hyperactive as compared to the kids when you see other kids. And teacher also complained that in class he had reduced attention and engaged in quarrels with his co-students quite often. These were the basic. You can see the basic picture of ADHD here with hyperactivity behavior and decreased concentration. So this was a typical picture of ADHD which the child presented. And mother was very much concerned कि school में अच्छा perform नहीं करता है. I need to have him right, and I want his behavior corrected. She was very much tense, and she was not very happy with the child. History of presenting complaints: the child was had hyperactive since childhood, but the complaint of decreased concentration has increased. He was a naughty child. So you can see when the ADHD starts intruding into the behavior. The child was naughty from birth. He was a hyperactive child, but recently only this ADHD had started intruding his concentration also. So had screen time for more than, obviously the factor can be different. The child had a lot of screen time for more than 3 hours a day. This was because, as I took up the history, the mother was not able to give much attention to that because she was a working mother and she had other household responsibility also. So she could not give much time to the child. So there was, all the time she used to give mobile to the child, and the child was mostly on the screen. So that, I guess, led to the development of ADHD, intruding his concentration also. Otherwise he was a normal child and a bit naughty child, but that naughtiness developed into ADHD after being exposed to this screen time, because he was more into this hyperactivity zone and not getting the attention which he wanted. In past history, he suffered from right-sided inguinal hernia, got operated for it last year, ran attacks of bronchitis when exposed to excessive cold. So he was a chilly patient. He had bronchitis in every winter. Family history had father also had inguinal hernia since last 10 years, got operated 2 years back. Mother had hypertension and gestational diabetes. Personal history was a very fussy eater. He used to get very irritated when he used not to get the things which he wanted to eat. He was a very fussy eater. He did not used to eat vegetables, averse to milk also, and did not want to eat the right things. Always wanted, the things like chips and juices and all the spicy and chatpata things. uh, so this was a kind of personal history. Moving on to the physical journals, as we see before, so before also there was bronchitis in winter. Thermal reaction, obviously a chilly patient. Appearance was lean and thin, emaciated, pigeon chest, has dark circles around the eyes. He had dark circles around the eyes. He was very much emaciated because he was not eating well, and obviously he was so much hyperactivity that whatever he was eating, that was not getting assimilated into the system. Appetite was good, could not tolerate hunger, thirst was moderate, desire for spicy and salty. Chatpata khana hai, or always something salty, not sweet. Aversion to milk, sleep but sound but startled in sleep, dreams sees frequent ghost in dreams. Perspiration was normal and tongue was clean and poised. And the things which we need to take consider here was chili patient, appetite, and the desire for spice and salty, averse to milk, and obviously startling in sleep. So there was something going on in the brain, obviously, because the sleep was also disturbed. Startling is a sign of uh, some kind of fear or some kind of emotional drainage that is happening with the child, that leads to startling in the sleep. Moving on to the mental journal, here the child was very restless. He used to curse and swear also. Mummy, आपकी कसम, I won't do this again. Mama, I want to do this. Mummy, आपकी कसम, मैंने नहीं किया, झूठ बोल देता था. I don't want to do this and I have not done this. So he used to curse and swear repeatedly, as mother told him. In front of me, I didn't see him cursing, swearing, but mother repeatedly said that he used to curse and swear. There was fear of being alone, especially at night. Vexed on trifles. At every little thing, he used to get irritated and answered him badly. When he was in my clinic, I tend to ask him answer. He did not answer me, but on the second visit, on the second follow up, when he came up, he was very mom, I don't want to tell, I don't want to tell, mama, I don't want to talk, and he never answered me properly. But in front of mother, in obviously when he was at home, he was always vexed on trivels, cannot bear contradiction, got violent, was angry, used to throw things around. Consolation aggravated, weeping disposition. To cover himself, he used to weep up. He used to weep up every time to cover him. Whenever he was getting scolded badly, he used to weep up and start crying. He was very self willed and was emotional by nature. Obviously, these symptoms are of ADHD and they are aggressive symptoms. But what is happening inside is that that child is not getting attention, which we see in the further in the case. So we need to study an ADHD kept very deeply, and we just not to see the outer manifestation and just prescribe. That is what happened in this case also. uh, Whenever I repertorize the case and using the software of Radar Opus also, the remedies were coming up very much there. But we will see how we went about in the case. Dr. Anushi, I think we have time.
Yes, Dr. Neha, you can go forward.
Okay, okay. So my radar opus screen is visible.
So I can see your screen.
Okay. So moving on to the mind, obviously I used the also here also the Murphy version of the third version of Murphy's repertory, and I have listed the rubrics here. I took up these rubrics. Everybody can see the rubrics also.
Yes, Dr. Neha.
Yeah. So I took up mind, violent behavior. Let's see how did we take up. I took up mind and I took up the violent behavior. Okay, just a second. Okay, so this is not getting it up. So here, actually, I don't know what's the problem. It's not taking up the symptoms. So here you can see as I have taken first symptom as violent behavior. Uh, as we see in this thing also, mind violent behavior. Then there is mind startled, starting fright from, as from startled. The child used to get startled in sleep, so I took startled up also as a symptom. Then I took up irritability in general. Then I took up inattentiveness. Then there was fears and phobia. I just need to see if I can just pick up and see the mind.
Dr. Neha, if you wish to add the rubrics in the second clipboard, kindly drag and drop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now like I have just dragged and drop here the violent behavior thing, and like this is the already done. I'm just showing how I took up the rubrics here. Then there was mind. When we again go into the mind thing, and we took up as startled. We take up as startled. Here I have seen taken up startled, and here I have taken the started lab. Okay, here we can see the second word here. As you can see, there is violent behavior and startled, fright from. Then again we go to the mind rubric, and we see this third symptom as mind irritability. So we take up the irritability rubric here. So here we can see irritability in general.
Dr. Neha, you can also show your first clipboard that consists of all your rubrics and we can move forward with that
Okay,
also.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So here I can see this irritability general is there, inattentiveness, fears and phobias of being alone. Then where there is dancing behavior, desire to, cursing and swearing, contradictions general, intolerant of. He was not able to take up the contradictions. Conciliation aggravates here. You can see in this there, anger general, trifles at. Then there was anger again, abusive and insulting. He was restlessness. As so, these were the mind rubrics which we took up of violent behavior, startled, in sleep, irritability, inattentiveness, fears of being alone, dancing behavior, cursing and swearing, contradiction and consolation aggravate, anger and abusiveness. Then moving on to the generals, we see restlessness and which was more on the physical level, and then generals of being chilled on being which aggravated, which brought on about the bronchitis. So these two symptoms I took up in the generals. Then coming on to the food, there was desire for spicy food, desire for salty food, also spicy and salty food. And in the dreams he used to see ghosts. Now as we can see in the repertory, there are a lot of drugs which are coming up. We have natriumate, sepia, phosphorus, belladonna, lycopodium, aconite, and natriumate covered the majority of the 17 symptoms. All of the symptoms were covered in natriumate, and the score that come up was around 30. And the other drug was sepia, which had a score of 34. And we have drug of nux vomica, then we have stramonium of 25, causticum, mercurius, tap. Now when we look at the case, we see that natriumate is coming up. But when I saw that child and based upon the complaints of the patient, I took up stramonium at the remedy. Now you may say this may be a mistake on my part, but the case presentation that came up was more of a stramonium. What I'm trying to say is I only saw the the manifested part of the case. I saw more of the aggressiveness, the hyperactivity behavior, the less of concentration, and the more of dancing, and not sitting still. Those symptoms indicated towards more of stramonium drug picture. So I chose up at my first choice of drug was stramonium. And as we look up the case follow up here, the first prescription that I made on 12th January when the patient came into my clinic was stramonium 1M, which was followed by placebo for 3 weeks. Because of the manifestation, I was also not taking the interior of the case, because this case was only my you can say the around second or third case for ADHD. And sometimes you tend to gaze. My first case of ADHD, it just went while the patient was not so much patient even to stick around me, because you need patience with a homeopath. You need a bit of time with the homeopath to bring about the results. Sometimes the results are not very quick, because the remedy takes time to get assimilated. So this thing that came up around me was of for stramonium, and I prescribed him more on the external drug picture which I got. And so after stramonium there was no improvement of symptoms after 1 month follow up. So again I prescribed him stramonium 1M, which was followed by a placebo for 3 weeks. Then in the second follow-up, the patient came to me. There was decrease in physical restlessness, mentally slight improvement in aggressiveness. So the stramonium worked here. There was decrease in physical and mental restlessness. The mother said ki the child is now bit better. He was around 10% better than before. So at that point of time, I did not prescribe him any medicine. I gave him saccharum lactis for 1 month. There was no further improvements of symptom after the third prescription of Saclac or the placebo. And on the third follow-up, he said there was no further improvement. So I again prescribed stramonium 1M. Obviously, as I told you, drugs take time, so we need the homeopath also needs to keep patience, and obviously the patient also needs to keep the patience. On the fourth follow-up, there was no further improvement of symptoms. Now at this point of time, when after 2 months of follow-up, the patient mother told me that अभी और improvement नहीं हो रहा है. So again I analyzed the case. The repertory was in front of me. Obviously there was natriumate, sepia, phosphorus, bell. There was noxovomica also. I again analyze the case, and I tend to see the case from another perspective, that is more of the emotional plane of the child. And that came to me on the prescription of natriumate. As you can see, if we see just on the number basis, the symptoms obviously covered by natriumate are maximum. But as we see the score here, CPI is giving us the maximum score, or Nux vomica is also giving up the max. But the child, when we look, whenever we are making any prescription, obviously the repertory is a very important tool, and these software also give us a very great insight into the symptoms, but obviously it is always up to the homeopath to make the prescription. So it was entirely on my judgment that I prescribed stramonium, and after analyzing the case again, I prescribed natramure. Obviously, that the software and the repertory that gave up me this, and I, on the basis of the emotional backup of the patient, where he was, a quiet and emotional child, that get got burst and got into the loop of ADHD due to inattention and not getting enough love from his mother, which he wanted. That led to the prescription of Natramure 1M. On the fifth follow-up, child became very much calmer mentally. His focus in studies improved. Physical restlessness was also less. Overall improvement in symptoms 30 to 40%. Here, after Natramure, the mother of the child said he used to now sit and eat the food properly. He used to eat food like a person would eat his meal, because previously he used to just run around the house and eat up. And obviously there was also increased attention in the study, so obviously the evident improvement is there after Natramure, because it hit it the emotional plane of the patient. There was uh, increased improvement in the symptoms of the patient. After that, I prescribed sacrum lactis for 1 month. No further improvement of symptoms. Then moved potency above. I prescribed him natrum mutanum, because obviously the mental plane is involved, and in cases of ADHD, we tend to take more of higher doses of 1M and 10M, because they hit the mental plane of the patient. Obviously, you can start also from 30, 200, and other potency, but 30 and 200 potencies are more working on the physical or the pathological level of the patient. And as we move up higher, the 1M and the 10M level, that is obviously hitting the brain or the mental plane, the emotional plane of the patient. In the seventh follow-up on in August, more improvement in concentration studies. Child remains more happy and content and is less frivolous. Better at concentration and focus while performing all activities. Then I prescribed after 10M. He was quite better. He was around 70% better, and I prescribed placebo. So he stick me around for you can say around 10 months. 10 or 8 months, you can see this from January to August. And so we need to have a lot of patience with these cases. And even I would say around 1 to 1.5 year would be not hyper to say that you can take around 1 or 1.5 year to get improvement in such kind of cases, because sometimes it's very difficult for the doctor also to take up the case and identify the symptoms. Obviously you can with experience your prescription becomes better. But if you are in the initial stage of your practice, and sometimes don't get bucked up that I failed, that the patient went away. Just keep trying and just keep using your repertories and the softwares, and they are going to help you a lot. And just keep sticking to your hard work, and obviously you'll get a result in that. So now in last he went came up in September. He is 70 to 80% better. The child is 70 to 80% better and is running on placebo. I just last saw him in September or October last, and after that the patient did not come to up to me. But I was happy that I gave some solace to the mother of the child, and the child was better, because he was a quite a intelligent child, but due to inattention and the environment that triggered the ADHD in him led to his symptoms. But now he was quite happy when he left me. So you can always hope for the best and keep trying in these kind of cases. So I guess I have provided a very, a basic picture of what can ADHD be like, and how, homeopathy can also help in treating. Obviously, with along with homeopathy, we need to have more of a psychotherapy and counseling session. But this was a case of a young child. So if any adolescent or a young adult come up with such kind of symptoms of ADHD, you can obviously use the behavioral therapies along with homeopathy. And we have a lot of many drugs, when used effectively and in the correct simulum, using our repertories and softwares, we can obviously reach the right medicine, and given in the right potency, they can shortly bring about the cure. And you can use other therapies, like the cognitive therapy, the psychotherapy, even reiki, and other back flower remedies, and other there are endless list. Along with homeopathy, you can also use them, because the end point is to bring relief to the patient. But as a system, homeopathy is quite effective, and you should keep trying, and we can surely and shortly can treat ADHD cases successfully with homeopathy. Thank you all for listening me patiently. So this is all about ADHD. Thank you, Dr. Anushri.
Thank you, Dr. Neha. That was a wonderful presentation from your side. Thank you. Thank you, all the doctors who have joined this session. And we hope that this session was useful for all of you and it would be useful for you in your clinical practice. Thank you for the patients listening. And thank you, Dr. Neha, for such a wonderful presentation. And with this, we
Thank you, Dr.
wrap up
Anushri.
this session.